Well, it is 12:30. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Flood Sales Tax Committee for November 18th, 2024. Could I get a roll call, please?
Breitling,
Here.
Sherling,
Here.
Ms. Madriga, Ms. Heinley, Mr. Wilson,
Here.
Mr. Steen,
Here.
Mr. Sazi.
Thank you. I assume that's a quorum then. We're just missing one. Okay. Could I get item number 1? Let me see. We need to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Is there any corrections or additions or a motion to approve?
To approve.
Is there a second?
So there. Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Item number 1, the Flood Sales Tax Fund update. Sarah, I assume you're going to give that to us?
I'm stepping in for Ms. Madriga today to give you this update. Sorry about that. There. Hear me better now?
Yes.
I'm stepping in today for Ms. Madriga to give you guys this update. Basically, I'm just going to hit on the key points here. We currently have 21 open projects in the fund with an encumbrances equaling about $4.5 million. The unencumbered balance in the fund is still $7.8 million. And on average, that has been increasing by about 16% every year since 2011, just so you know.
Wonderful. Does anyone have any questions? I just have a question, and I know I've got folks here in the audience that could probably maybe address. Are any of these delayed for any reason, or will we be? I look at that Davenport levy. Is that going to be coming up soon? There's some pretty significant funds here that haven't been paid out. You want to just approach, please? And then just identify yourself for the record.
Commissioner Sherling, Kurt Lisney with Moore Engineering. I can speak to the Davenport project. That project it's got all of its permits, and there's just one railroad agreement left. And we've got an approved conditional letter of map revision from FEMA. So a lot of that's happened in the last several months. I shouldn't say that. The permit from the state we're expecting in February. So state construction permit, that's contingent upon an agreement with the railroad, which is close. We're working on that. So of the funds to date, design is about complete, but we'll have to go back for a state water commission cost share request. And then once we know how much they'll cost share, their initial funding was approved in 2020. So we know costs have gone up since then. So we'll go back to them for additional funding. And then once that number is known, we'll come back to the Flood Sales Tax Committee. We sent a memo last April. So in the April meeting packet, there was a letter and it detailed what had been done to date and the costs. We expect an anticipated increase in cost share of about $300,000. So you can reference the April meeting packet for that information. There was nothing new to submit for this one.
Thank you. So you mentioned the letter of map revision. How tough has that been to work with? I'm just curious from a county-wide standpoint, because I'm hearing it's really taking a long time to get some of these through.
So it was submitted, Alexa's in the audience, she can correct me, but I think we submitted it in July of 23. May of 23, and it was approved within about a year. So that's the conditional letter. And then once we're done with construction, we'll submit the letter of map revision. Anticipate that to take about the same amount of time. That one went pretty well.
Okay. So do people have to pay flood insurance in the meantime?
Yeah, so not quite yet. The Western Cass Flood Insurance Study was going to be released with a letter of final determination in October with maps effective in, I think, April or May. That's been delayed till February, so it'll be 6 months after that. So it'll be August or so, they'll start paying flood insurance. So there will be a gap between the ongoing construction and when the letter of map revision is approved. Yes.
Well, better late than never. Mr. Wilson.
And remind me, what is the, Madam Chair, remind me, what is the construction time anticipated on that?
We can bid it over the winter. We think we can do it in one construction season. It'd be a long season, but we think we can do it 1 year. If if the construction permit doesn't come from the state or the funding's not approved and we bid it in the summer, with construction prices the way they are, we've been bidding longer construction timelines to get the price down to give contractors more flexibility. So with that in mind, it could take longer, but one season is our anticipation.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Anything else on here that you'd like to comment on?
I can run through just briefly on anything water resource district related.
Sure.
So starting at the top of and I'm on Schedule A, 2015 Upper Maple River and 2015 Rush River, those are part of a RCPP project. There is some left to be paid out on that. Those are ongoing studies with the NRCS. Sheldon Addition Ring Levy, we talked about that at the April meeting. We do now have that project ready to be bid out. We got the final easements that we needed in the state construction permit. That one has a total approved balance of $462,750 from the Flood Sales Tax Committee. We did get State Water Commission cost share on that. And at the last meeting, it was made a motion or a kind of a head nod from this committee to approve paying an amount up to an amount that would keep the vote of those residents capped. Up to the maximum cost share approved of $462,750. So once we get that bid out, we'll send the committee an update on where that stands. Going down Water Resource District projects, 2019 T180 dam safety improvements. That one's complete. So I think that one can get a request in for funding if it hasn't been made. 2020 Davenport, that one is ongoing as well. Lyndon Pease will have a couple Elm River water resource projects on if you think he's got an update on the Elm. So I'm going to jump down to 2022 Upper Maple River Detention and Rush River. Those updates have been completed, and I believe those cost share requests should be pending coming soon. Those are all the ones I have an update on.
Great. Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions for Kurt?
Not for Kurt, but I have another question relating to the financials.
Sure.
Just a quick question. It's been a while since I've looked at these. Does this fund accrue interest? I mean, are they allocated interest over the period of time?
There is an interest allocation based on the total balance within the fund, but not attributed to this fund.
Not what?
In other words, the dollars in it are in interest-bearing accounts, but
Oh, they do get allocated. Okay, that's what I couldn't recall, but thank you. I should add quite a bit every year at $11 million balance. So
Anybody else have any questions? Maybe Lyndon, if you wanted to just step up and there you are. And then just to announce your name so people can hear you online. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Appreciate you inviting me up here. So I'll give an update on two projects, the Elm River Dams. They are listed in your Schedule A there. The first one is Elm River Dams number 1 and number 2. That's cost share of 2/3 from this committee. And I'm passing around a few photos of construction. So I just wanted to give an update on construction for Elm River Dams 1 and 2. We're nearing completion of construction for the season. Probably be done here in a few weeks, maybe by the end of the year. Construction will be in final completion next summer once we get growth of the seed to be established. Contractor currently is wrapping up work for that portion. The next project there is also Elm River Dam number 3. That one there is located in Cass County. This sales tax committee did approve 90% cost share for the remaining costs, slightly above the 75% cost share. That one there is also nearing completion this fall. They're filling embankment material, and that's just upstream of one of the county roads up in the Page area. Similar to dams 1 and 2, they all kind of work together. Dam 3, that will be completed with vegetation to be expected to be established next summer. So come next summer, maybe for the fall, a year from now, 2025, we'll know what the final costs are for all 3 dams. And it is anticipated that construction costs have come in higher than what this committee had previously approved on dams 1 and 2. The committee had approved up to $145,733. It's estimated that if we were to come back with cost share request to the sales tax committee, that number might be about 160,000. So might see about a $14,000 increase. And that's just because we had received a increased or a larger bid tabulation from our contractor when we actually went to public advertisement for bid. It came in higher at the estimate than what this committee had approved a year ago. We had bid the project over the winter, so contractor prices came in a little bit higher, probably attributed to the FM diversion, just with the lack of available contractors in the area. Similar with Elm River Dam number 3, this committee had approved up to $38,160. Again, it was all part of the same bid package there. Bids came in a little higher. We are adding some additional features on all 3 projects to make them sustainable for probably the next 50 to 60 years. So there we anticipate that maybe that final cost will be about $50,000 for the Cass County sales tax portion. So maybe about a $12,000 cost share request increase potentially in about a year once we get final cost nailed down. Open up to any questions that anybody might have.
Anybody have any questions for Lyndon? Thank you very much. Anyone else? Robert, you want to step up?
I'm in, so I'm a little bit behind here. We let bids a year ago for finishing dam number 3. We couldn't get a bid. And when we let bids for all 3 of them, and the contractors are telling us that the project is just too small. You got to have a project big enough to do all projects. So we put all 3 of them together, asked for bids. And it's getting kind of sketchy whether we're going to get a bid. But then one of the contractors said, well, give us another week, put together a bid. And we got that bid plus one other bid that was quite a bit higher yet. So anyhow, Site Works out of Minneapolis, well, it's 10 miles northwest of Minneapolis, came in with a bid, which we thought was a little high, but we're getting it done. They're getting the work done. It's supposed to be done by November 30th. Far as needed and pretty much ready to go, except we'll have to check out next year and what's left to be done. But we're very happy with how things went, because with all the contracting going on with the diversion and so on in North Dakota, just lucky we got people to do it.
Well, I know last time I drove around, I don't know how many boots are on the ground out in rural Cass County working on all kinds of projects. So it's, pretty tough, I imagine, to get people to respond. So, well, thank you for the presentation. Appreciate the information. One more update, I think.
Good afternoon. Brandon Noy with Moore Engineering, city engineer with Castleton, Kindred, and Mapleton, so I can give an update on those projects that are on the list. The 2022 Mapleton Lapgate Storm Sewer Outfall project, that is complete. I believe everything's been requested for cost share, but I'll do one last double check to make sure that they've submitted a final and then basically release the remaining on that project. Moving down, 2022 Castleton Lagoon Slide Repair, that is also complete, and I believe the auditor has requested the final funds on that, but I'll again double check and make sure that the remaining balance can be released. And then the bottom 3, Mapleton 2nd Street Storm Lift Station. That lift station is almost substantially complete. They are waiting for the control panel to be installed on that. That should be happening here this month. And then I would think we'll have more progressive requests for that, and there may be some additional requests as it gets to final payment, final completion. 2023 Castleton Industrial Park improvements, that is on the agenda, so I'll give an update when that time comes. And the last one on your list, 2023 Kindred Storm Sewer Detention Pond project. That is substantially complete as of this fall. So I believe waiting to make a final payment on that before we request one full request at one time. So the work is complete, we'll be submitting a request here, I would imagine, soon, so.
Great. Thank you, Brandon. Is there any questions for Brandon? Okay, well, just sit tight. We will move on to, are there any other questions regarding the flood sales fund update?
I could give some updates on some of these other township
Sure,
ones.
please do.
That's okay. So the 2021 Gill Township Road. And you go down a little further and it's 2022. That should be Gill there instead of Phil, I guess, but it's both those projects are basically done. There's just a few minor things there, I guess. So we'll be submitting those here over the winter here to cost share for those two Gill ones. And the Rochester Page project, I guess Marvin is here. You want to speak, Marvin, quick, I guess? Welcome to.
This is no doubt one of your smaller projects. And
Marvin, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Marvin Thorson from Rochester Township. And this is a joint project with Rochester and Page Township. And it's a road that's prone to continuous flooding. There's nowhere for the water to go, and it was getting to be a dangerous road, and the shoulders were slumping away. And so we bid a project to widen it, and he finally got to it. It took a long time. Contractors out there that do this kind of work are just so hard to get on project. They're so busy, and but he did finish it mostly. It hasn't been gravelled yet, and so he widened it and put a culvert in it and rip-wrapped it, and then the gravel will come yet. And so the road is probably 3 times as wide as it was, and that's what we needed to have it safe and a good road. And the only thing is that we underestimated the amount of riprap that's needed to do it. And I think the riprap with the rock is key to keeping the shoulders where they're supposed to be. And I have pictures here before and after, and you'll see even, excuse me, even now with the little bit of rain that we have had, and we haven't had much. The last rain we had was like 6,500s, and it is starting to, where it hasn't been riprap, they're starting to see some slumping already going away on that. So I think in order to finish the project completely, we'll need more riprap put in there. And I anticipate it'll probably be close to 18 to 20,000 more to riprap. But where we're at right now is 70,000, and that much has been completed. And I anticipate payment will probably happen this winter on that 70,000. And earlier you approved the $70,000 project at 75% cost share for us. And so working with Tom, it sounds like maybe we can at least try to get a additional to finish this up. And so we probably will submit a revised bid on that, or a revised application to try to get the additional riprap needed to finish that project up. And so it's essentially completed, except for that additional riprap and gravel. I anticipate gravel was supposed to come last week and it didn't, so I'm hoping it comes today. But I don't know where the rain, right, because it gets pretty slimy and slippery without any gravel on it. So that's the update is substantially complete as was bid.
Thank you for that, Marvin. I guess that's been a good project, I guess, that to fix up that area there. That's kind of.
Anybody have any questions for Marvin? Thanks for being here and joining us. Go ahead, Tom.
And then the other projects to expand up there are the ones in Maple River. Speaker, you want me to? Okay. All right. So one is done and one is not, I guess. But the one that is complete or nearly complete are that one, same story, broken record here. It basically costs kind of went over again too. So in the next meeting, they'll be submitting for some additional, costs to cover their full amount. So everybody's kind of got the same problem, same boat here with all these projects here, I guess. So yeah, so that'll be coming here, that request in the next, at the next meeting here for additional costs to cover, cover everything. So, and I believe that would complete my report here, I guess, for the townships. I guess other than, the Normanna Township, I guess I can expand on that one maybe a little more too. We're continuing to work with the church and, Normanna Township there. It's, they did, I mean, when that was first brought here to the sales tax, committee, you know, the request was to look, out, to Bismarck at the water resource district out there, I guess. And it's not sounding very good out there, I guess, as far as to get any funding, I guess so, but we're just looking at other options, I guess, but we're continuing to work with the township in Houston has kind of come up with the design there, I guess, but the numbers are like $2.5 million to build this wall and the other option in there is whether, you know, the church would get moved or maybe there's some cost share with the church possibly, I guess. So the township is going to be looking at all those options and we'll bring that back to this committee here at the next meeting to update and possible request for funding for that one. I think that would actually concludes all my projects that I got on my radar here, I guess. So unless there's
Oh.
any questions for anyone, from anyone.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. One, you know, we're talking about some low head dams later on in the meeting, and I'm wondering how many of those are sitting around Cass County that are going to need improvements? Because those are great to switch out if we can. I mean, there's certainly a danger, or at least they can be.
I think Kurt would be the best guy to answer that question.
I mean, I wasn't even, you know, obvious. I'm not aware of all of these little dams that are sprinkled around here and there.
Thanks, Commissioner Sherling. I don't have the exact number. The Department of Water Resources did send a prioritization list out a couple years ago, so that's what we're basing. Oh, do you have it? Yeah, if we could count on that, how many are in Cass County? The categories, what that means is Department of Water Resources looked at the same and had the same question you have. How many are out there in the state and how much funding should they commit? And if everybody came in at the same time, would they even have the money? And so they did a prioritization based off proximity to recreation features, proximity to populated areas, and then ranked them based on that. So level 5 would be their highest level of I guess risk, level 4, and then 3, 2, 1 on down. So a very rural cattle dam would be a level 1. One like the wild rice would be a level 5. So
Oh,
I don't have an exact count.
or total? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I just didn't know if there were 40 or what the number was. So, okay, good to know. Thank you. And then,
Maple, I believe, was a level 4. Those are both high. Maple was 4, correct, Alexa? Yep.
I think we've gotten a pretty good handle over the years on, you know, flood protection out in rural county, especially with the Western Cass, you know, study finally, you know, coming into a conclusion and giving us some clarity on where we should be spending those funds. So it'd be nice to be able to do some future planning just to see where these funds are going to go. And, I mean, because we've been keeping up pretty well, but of course, the next time we have a flood, and we'll find all kinds of new places to that are going to need new protection. One other question I have for you, Tom, and maybe anybody else that can answer it, is what about the rural areas in Cass, inside the protected area, the diversion, that aren't going to get protection from, that aren't protected to 37 feet? And, that's not really within the city of Fargo, because most of those have been bought out. But there's certainly areas north of town and south of town that aren't necessarily 37 feet. And maybe if they are 37 feet, they're not going to meet FEMA's requirements for flood insurance because they're at 36 feet.
Mhm.
So maybe they won't get flooded, but they'll still be paying flood insurance.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. We are working with Houston Engineering just to identify all those locations and to find a way forward for those properties. So yeah, like you're definitely correct. Where some of those they may not get wet, but they might still be paying flood insurance is what's probably going to happen to some of those properties.
But I guess, when taxpayers here in Cass County passed the flood sales tax, that was the sales pitch, is that they're going to get permanent flood protection and they're not going to pay flood insurance. And I think that that's just going to be my little spiel for the day,
Okay.
since this is my last meeting. And the next time I'll be sitting out in the audience saying,
Yeah.
so, and at any rate, I think that going forward, it would be good to have some planning on all of the projects coming up. And, who knows, maybe you want to have a little subcommittee with these various engineers and talk about future needs. Because, I hear over the years, we button up this and we button up that, and then you guys are very good at finding more projects. But it'd be kind of nice to know if there are some other really, especially the bigger projects that you're well aware of that might be coming up in the next 5 or 10 years. I think that might be good for this committee to know about those, is try to figure out how to disperse the funds. So, okay, with that, any other questions, Tom? Then I will move on to item number 2. Brandon, you want to talk about the Castleton Industrial Park improvements?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Sherling. Again, Brandon Oy with Moore Engineering, city engineer for the city of Castleton. We have already provided a request for helping out with the industrial park improvements in Castleton. We had come back previously and talked about kind of some adjustments that the city's making from timing standpoint. Really the struggle has been trying to figure out how to pay for the local share and try to make it something that the industrial park owners can handle. And so when we're looking at this particular request, it's more of an adjustment of the request. And so I can kind of direct you to, if you have the letter request, there's a map on the back side of that. So when we looked at the master planning for the industrial park properties from a stormwater standpoint and flood protection, we had to identify an outlet that worked better than the current outlet, which is to the southeast into the interstate ditch. So that outlet actually goes through an existing development or a development that was just being constructed and goes to Swan Creek. When they were putting in that infrastructure for that outlet, we did work with them to size it appropriately to handle the industrial park properties, as well as obviously the existing or the residential area. And so we didn't previously come to the committee asking for funds for that portion of it, but there's a specific portion of that pipe or that outlet that's being paid by the industrial park properties. And so
we looked at this, we had done a kind of a similar project on the north side of Castleton where it included the school, existing school properties, new development property. We tried to do a joint system to try to make it efficient rather than two separate storm sewer systems. And at that time, that was approved by the committee to pay for just the portion of the existing area of the school. And so with that concept, we thought that that would make sense to try to apply here. They already do know specifically what is going to be paid by the industrial park properties and kind of delineated that out. The auditor would obviously be in charge of making sure that those are appropriated correctly if there is cost share that's applied to the project. So right now, the cost share that has been approved is up to $1 million. The portion of this work that would impact the industrial park is just over $1,045,000. And so the request in front of the committee is for $522,500 to be applied to that of the 1 million. There's questions I can answer. And I forgot to mention, I do have Kevin Mayer, the Public Works Director with Castleton as well, if there's other questions he can answer.
Basically, the request is reducing the previous commitment by roughly 50%.
I would say we're probably holding, because there was work being done on right of way and stuff on that component as well, but I don't think we're going to use that full amount for sure for that. And so it was kind of being more clear to the committee that there's a portion of this project that we didn't originally ask for, that we're asking to be perfectly transparent on how the funds are being used. So.
I was reading the minutes, and I think the committee addressed this project at the last meeting. So. And I mean, did some exact details, but does that roll into this request?
Yeah, the last time we were here, they were holding off on the construction and trying to just moving into acquiring right away for the time being. And so the construction has been paused, and really it's because of the local cost of it. They're struggling with that. Right now they are starting to look at maybe tax increment financing that could be available. They have a current TIF that is going to be paying off the debt, I think by next year. And so they're looking at potentially trying to roll that in and basically just figuring out how are they going to pay for this local share. And that's kind of where it's kind of paused until they get that figured out.
And I will say, I mean, I don't know how many years ago, we did have a lot of conversation about the school and the pumps up there. I don't know if you were even here at that time, Robert, but it was, I don't know. I've been here for 12 years. It was a while ago. But
I think I was just coming
you know,
out here.
we were pretty clear that, and we were very recently very clear to the city of Mapleton that we don't do development.
Correct.
So I appreciate it's got to be separate.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's what happened up at school is there was, a school, and then of course you want to have new development. But this was for transferring water for the school.
So if the first request or the existing request is for $1 million and you're going to use 450 or whatever the number is,
522
for this other piece that you've identified here or allocated to the other piece, how much will your next request be to finish off the project that you originally came for? I mean, you're not going to do it for half price. You're going to come back with, now we need another $1 million, right? Because the date of this, obviously, costs have already gone up, right? So just curious what the plan is going forward. If you've got this $1 million, we're going to use 400 some odd thousand, and being upfront, appreciate that. But now we've got 500,000 short in this fund, and so what's the next step?
Yes. So the original project less this amount was around 4 million, and we had originally been approved for 50% of that amount. So we had 2 million approved. That's where, to not encumber that amount for the time being, I had come back and said, I know that they're trying to do some additional things here. I don't know exactly where it's going to go, but let's drop it down to $1 million. Not with an exact number yet of what that was going to be used, but we didn't want to sit on $2 million for you guys to encumber that for that long because the timing was indefinite. But if they are able to figure out the remaining local share source, I would say it'd be in the range of maybe another 2 to 3 million of cost share requested, since the original one was around 2. To your point, the construction costs are going to continue to go up. And so it's probably in that 2 to 3 million to finish it out.
And what portion of that is related to development? I'm just gonna ask that.
Yeah, well, the goal would be 0. That's related to development. It's the existing industrial park area. So, yeah, the way that it was broken out is they're going to be doing special assessments, and so the values that are in here are what's going to be applied as special assessments to those properties, and so that's kind of already been figured out that that specific $1,045,000 is being applied to those existing properties. And then in the future, if they can figure out a way to do the project without special assessments, I think that's really what they're trying to get at, is to not encumber or place more costs onto those properties, because they were loud and clear. They're really struggling to try to do their business and stuff with this additional cost, and so that's where they're trying to look at the other options like the TIF.
Just so I want to make sure that I'm tracking this 100%. This $1,045,000 would be really the portion of this that benefits the industrial park,
Correct.
excluding anything that benefits any development that would be responsible on its own and not and not touch sales tax funds.
Yeah, we looked specifically at the special assessment list that was for the industrial park property, as opposed to this Prairie Skies development is what it's called. That was like 700 and some thousand of it when they looked at the proration, so that's not being requested here. And then the auditor again would apply it accordingly.
Thank you.
And I guess I read this as just a status update. Are you looking for don't have-
If you feel it's appropriate to clarify the use of the funds for that portion of it, I guess that would provide clarity that there isn't a question about it after the fact. And whether that needs to be a motion or just in the minutes is adequate. Sure.
So if I'm trying to track, I wasn't at the previous meeting, so I'm still trying to catch up. So there's, of the million that's already been approved, that's what we're talking about, right? You'd like this committee to approve a reallocation of 522,000 to a different part of the project. That's what you're looking at.
Yes.
Not asking for any more money at this time, but that's why I asked the other question, how much money would be coming back for? And so the 522,000 is really being used to reduce the load, the special assessments on the new development area.
On the existing industrial park area. Yeah. It's not adjusting any special assessments on the new development area. Those assessments are in full what they are going to be regardless of what happens here. The district is the entire west half of that section. So everything west of Highway or 18 in between Swan Creek and the industrial park, that's the full district for that portion of the project.
Is that any different than what our motion was in April?
What's different is we're applying it to a portion of the project that wasn't specifically identified for cost shares. Previously, it was for, if you look at the map that's on the letter request, there's the red component, which I'd say is directly related to the industrial park project. The purple component is kind of that joint part. It's that joint part that we weren't specifically asking for cost share on originally. And that's just probably the way that it played out. We weren't specifically involved with that project itself. But we were overseeing, making sure the sizing was appropriate for the industrial park, the joint part. And so it just really wasn't an initial component of the project that we were like, oh yeah, you should be able to get cost share for that. So that's just adding that component of it into the cost share. Eligible costs, I guess.
How soon do you need a decision on this?
Well, I think that I'd have to talk with the auditor and see what the timing is for payments and those things, but
I'm a little thick on it this morning, this afternoon. It's like, so this piece of the project, the north part of the project wasn't considered in the first application. And that's existing neighborhood. The north part is,
it's a newer neighborhood.
So-
That we coordinated the sizing for the outlet for the industrial park properties to use.
you're adding more. You got to size it differently because you're now including the system. So the question I would have, and wasn't around when this was approved, but if this would have been presented as, here's what we're doing. We're doing it for the existing industrial park and this new part of the neighborhood that's going to be completed. Would the committee have approved that? I mean, I'm just trying to think, would that be considered development back then? And would you say, well, we're not going to pay for development improvements. Now it's already here. Now we've got to resize it. So now someone's got to pay for it, right? So how is that going to happen? I'm just curious how it would have been treated the first time it was presented, because I don't.
And that's why I tried to reference what you had done on the north side, which I thought was a similar situation. It's definitely not like black and white, like it is or isn't eligible. And so I think we're being very clear that there's no part of the cost share will benefit any of the new development. As in, the only ones that are seeing the benefit of the cost share are the existing industrial park properties. And that's very specific because that's the way it'll be applied to the project costs from the auditor through the special assessments.
Basically, saying is that you had to increase the outlet for the industrial park in the purple areas in
Yes.
order to accommodate the increased flows.
Absolutely. Yep. And trying to do it in a way that would be efficient rather than trying to have two separate systems.
Get this thing off dead center, I'm going to move that we approve the request.
I'll second that. It's okay.
Thank you. I wonder if we shouldn't add to that motion, just the guardrails, just to repeat the guardrails so that there's real clarity in what we're doing here. I don't want any other communities to come back to us and say, gee, look what you did for Castleton. I want them to make sure that we all understand that we didn't participate in development of anything in Castleton with sales tax
I was
dollars.
kind of asking those questions. It's like we're kind of stepping, could be stepping into a little bit of a pile here if we're not careful.
So, I mean, we're going to have plenty of places to put these funds that are going to go to legitimate flood protection projects. And I just want to make sure that our guardrails are in place here and everybody's really, really clear on it.
I think that's one of the reasons, Mayor, that I asked the question, how much more are you going to come back for? Because there may not be that money available when you come back. Because there's, as Commissioner Sherling suggested, there's plenty of places that are going to be asking for legitimate flood protection. And so I wouldn't count on this future funding request. I was just getting that out there because it's like, that's a lot more. I'd say you should have spent the $500,000 differently. I know it's not That's not quite right. I get it, but that would be the reaction I think people would look at.
And we were pretty clear with the property owners when we went through the public input process that they asked, is it going to be available? And it's like, we don't know. It could be, it may not be though. So that's a decision that will come to you at that time. We'll obviously try to apply if there are funds, but if there aren't, now it's a whole different discussion of how you're going to pay for that balance of the project. So
Yes, I would really like to, if, maybe there's a better way to slice this up. That would make it a little more clear cut. I don't know. I mean, the industrial park is one thing. A percentage of the industrial park, I don't know.
That's what I was struggling with. It's like, it doesn't look as clean as we'd like it to look. I would say that. Right? I mean,
if you wanted to, maybe there's like a phase 1, phase 2, and we could adjust the phase to phase 1 would be this component that we're talking about, and the request then would be for the 522,500, and then the balance would be on like the phase 2, and if we have to come back and request additional amount at that time, once we have a better idea of how they're financing, then that can be completely separate.
That might make more sense, just for better clarification for what we're paying for here. And you might have a better way of paying for your other areas that we're not going to compensate at that point too. You might have a better idea. I don't know.
that works. That'd be,
Yeah,
And we're not convoluting the two components of it.
right. So then we really don't need a motion at all today, do we? Because we already
I'm
approved.
uncomfortable with spending money without a motion.
already,
Well, we already approved.
So we've approved the concept, but not the expenditure.
Well, didn't we last spring already approve the,
it's an approved project, right?
yeah,
It's an improved project, but it's almost like you could say that phase 1 wasn't part of that approved project, where the clarification today would be that phase 1 is part of the approved project.
would you like to just amend your motion, Commissioner, so we're real crystal clear?
Not crystal clear on the amended motion, but I'll second it. But I get it where it's going. I'm not sure what it says, but I understand it.
Any further discussion on this? Any further discussion?
I would just like to ask that if we get the appropriate language.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what we're all talking about here, but I'd really like to see it documented somewhere.
Okay,
Get it.
can we repeat the appropriate language?
Why don't we, right now you have a 2023 Castleton Industrial Park improvements for 50% for $1 million. If we want to adjust that into 2 separate requests, the first one being phase 1, second one being phase 2. Phase 1 would be a request of the 522,500, and then phase 2 would be the balance, so 477,500. And then in the future, if we need to request an amended amount for that phase 2, we can come back and request that. And that keeps those 2 separate. So phase 1, phase 2.
Any discussion on that? And I think we need a roll call vote.
Yes. That's,
Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Heinley,
Yes.
Ms. Sherling,
Yes.
Mr. Britling.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Saucy. Thank you. Okay, let's go on to item number 3, Rush River Amenia Flood Control. Who's got that one?
I can start it, and then if you two want to introduce yourselves quick, in case you speak.
Good afternoon. I'm Melissa Hinkemeyer. I'm the Director and Secretary for the Cass County Water Resource Districts.
And Alexa Dussault, More Engineering.
Mr. Sherling, members of the committee. So the Amenia Flood Control Project has been going on for some time. There was a RCPP project that the Cass County Joint Water Resource District partnered with the NRCS on that started in 2016 and 2017. Formed a committee, looked at projects and prioritized the Rush River watershed, eventually settling on the preferred project being a ring dike for the city of Amenia. And so if you look at the request, there's a map on the back. That's got the current alignment and a location for a pond. Pretty limited detail on that map, but that's the gist of where the project will lie. So the NRCS funded 100% of the initial study and the final design. And then a lot of the landowners came back and there was some modifications to the original design. So the Water Resource District paid for some of those modifications and Cass County Flood Sales Tax paid for some of those modifications. Where it's at today is the final design and reports have been updated, submitted to the NRCS. They're reviewing those. We anticipate that in the coming months, hopefully days would be better, but sometime soon, NRCS will come back, approve the project, approve the plan, and come back with a cost share agreement for construction. They will fund up to 100% of construction of the ring dike. What they won't fund is permitting, coordination with FEMA, O&M manual development. Well, they actually might fund that, but they don't fund the permitting or the right-of-way. So there will be future requests. Once the local share is known in detail of what that'll be, we'll come back to the Water Commission first, and then to the Flood Sales Tax Committee to determine what your share will be requested. In the meantime, since they don't play for permitting, to save time, because conditional letters of map revision from FEMA and Department of Water Resources construction permits do take some time to expedite the project prior to going to the residents for a vote. The Cass County Joint Water Resource District is looking for cost share to submit the conditional letter of map revision request and submit that to FEMA, and then the construction permit for the state, so that once it comes down to it, those two items don't delay the project more than they would. So the request on the table today is $138,000 total to do those two permits, like I mentioned. The Department of Water Resources will fund up to 60% of that. So there's a request in for $82,800 from them. So, and because there's no other local funding partners right now, the Joint Water Resource District is funding this out of a general account. And Melissa's nodding, so I think that's accurate. Good. They don't have dedicated funds. There's not an assessment district yet. There will be for construction, but to keep this on schedule, the district is requesting 90% of the remaining local share for an amount of $49,680. And with that, I think we can, any questions?
How much will you be coming back for in the future?
It'll be for right of way. So it depends on how long the NRCS takes and what happens with land values. Anticipated from this board would be less than a couple $100,000, hopefully. Hopefully the NRCS funding their 100%. And then State Water Commission will fund 65 or 60% of all the remaining local share. And then we'll come back to this board at that time. And then there will, for the remaining local share, there'll be an assessment district vote of the residents. We're anticipating their share will be about 100,000. Hopefully we've got it down to that amount because there's not a lot of residents in Amenia to split those costs.
Well, good project. Rick.
So I was involved with this one since I've got on the board, I think, and it's been well vetted. I'll have to say, with the residents, with the landowners, with the city council, with just about everybody out there, and a lot of meetings I think went through. And they, if you look at the design is somewhat different than was originally planned, which I think is a much better design now. There was some issues with private land ownership and farm ownership and that type of thing. And I think they really did a good job, the city and the landowners around it, coming back with a pretty reasonable solution. I think that's my 2 cents. Seems to be a good project out there.
Yes, I've heard a lot about the Amenia project.
Yeah.
Is there any further questions or motion?
Just Just one comment. I know that the 90% is higher than we would normally look at. I think it's reasonable. I'm glad Kurt brought it up about, we've got further funding to do. And if there's I take that into consideration, you have a assessment district, where's that going to land? How much is going to cost them? We, take this funding into consideration when we look at the future funding as well. So I think it's just a good plan to get this thing moving. Don't delay it. We'll figure out the final cost share when it comes down to that.
A motion?
Motion.
There a second?
Second.
Thank you. I would agree. I think this is exactly the projects that we're looking to fund. So happy to help those folks get out of the floodplain. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Fritling,
Yes.
Ms. Sherling,
Yes.
Heinley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Steen,
Yes.
Mr. Saucy.
Yes.
And the motion carries. On to the Maple River Lowhead Dam improvements.
Madam Chair, I apologize. I was double booked for another meeting at 1:30. I'll jump back here if you're still going when that one is done. That shouldn't take too long.
All righty.
So do you want me to start this one or do you want to? Okay, I can take this. So we hinted briefly earlier about lowhead dams within the county. If you look at the Red River, you'll notice there's rock riffle structures at the Main Avenue Bridge, and there's upstream and downstream. And actually the last structure on the Red River that does not have a modification to reduce the roller effect along the Red River is up in Drayton, which is being taken care of as a mitigation project of the FM diversion. So when you say the FM diversion is a local project, it actually extends all the way up almost to Canada. So pretty interesting there. So lowhead dams, they're exactly what they say they are. They're lowhead, usually for cattle, for backing up water, or for municipal water supply. And they have a vertical cross section to them. And when water spills over that, it creates a hydraulic roller. What that does, it highly oxygenates the water, and plus it provides a current that backflows. So even if you could float on that, if you were getting currently pulled back against the dam, you'd also sink, even with a life jacket, because there's so much air in the water and those bubbles, and they are referred to nationally as drowning machines. There's a big push nationally to retrofit those to make them much more safe. The Midtown Dam in Fargo at one point was the most dangerous dam in the nation. I think there was 19 deaths there throughout the first half of the 20th century. There's a historian that does the Red River. He'd be the one to talk to on that, but it was a pretty interesting presentation. And so the State Water Commission has prioritized these and has cost share available. They will fund up to 75% for mitigation of these structures. They will either cost share on removing the dam or modifying the dam with rock to mitigate the roller effect. They will not pay for both. They won't pay for removal and then reconstruction of a new dam that's got a different outlet. That's just their cost share policy. So there was letters received several months back from Cass County, and these projects have been talked about casually over the years. And both the Maple River Water Resource District and then the next project on the agenda is the Wild Rice Dam with the Southeast Cass Water Resource District. Both of those boards took those letters very seriously. There was a drowning last summer in Ransom County near Fort Ransom. And with the cost share available, they both decided to pursue funding for final design. They have not yet committed to construction on those. And just like the Amenia project, at this point, there's no other local funding source other than Water Resource District general funds. So it would be to the board's best interest to pursue as much cost share as possible. So both of these two projects, the Maple and the Wild Rice Dam project, were submitted for cost share from the Department of Water Resources for final design. Those were approved at their October meeting. And so with that in mind, they applied to the Cass County Flood Sales Tax, pursuing 90% of the remaining local share for final design. And so I guess addressing the Maple River first, no environmental work has been done on these yet, no survey. So the costs look a little bit high for final design, but that's because there's been no legwork up front. There's also pretty complicated modeling for both of these sites. There's FM diversion modeling, there's effective FEMA modelings, there's floodway issues. And so we anticipate the hydraulic modeling effort will be fairly intense along with the design effort. So with that in mind, on the Maple, the estimated final cost or cost of final design and surveys and all that goes with it is estimated to be $273,500. The Department of Water Resources approved $178,875 of that. So the remaining local share is $94,625, and the Water Resource District, the Maple River Water Resource District is requesting 90% cost share at $85,162.50. This will get through the design phase. Both the landowners adjacent to the Wild Rice and the Maple dams, they want to keep the dams there. They provide backwater, there's fishing, there's other recreation. And so the boards are pursuing a project to construct the rock riffles like the Midtown Dam south of the Main Avenue Bridge, where it's a rock riffle structure that provides fish passage and environmental enhancement, but also the safety enhancements required by the state for their cost share. So with that, oh, and then both of those projects just are really rough until we have final design. We don't have an estimate, but those projects usually are about $1 million in construction. So anticipate if it's $1 million, it'd be a $750,000 ask from the Water Commission, and then the remaining $250,000 at this point, it looks like it'd be about that, would be required or requested for cost share from the Cass County Flood Sales Tax. So with that, we can take any questions.
Questions? I guess I have a couple. Is who benefits from the dams?
So there's recreational benefits. There are people that fish at both of these. So I'd say residents of the county. I don't think people are coming from other states or
Right.
other counties even to benefit, but there are a lot of local residents that fish at these sites. And then the other beneficiaries would be anybody that's kayaking or canoeing on the river or recreating like that. They will not have to.
From a flood standpoint of holding back water.
Sure. So they were originally constructed as cattle dams. Now they're holding the banks in place. I don't know that there's cattle watering out of these. There are a few irrigation intakes for local residents. But in general, it's they're not being used for cattle anymore.
Yeah, I guess I understand that we, fund dams and do maintenance and repairs on dams, but this doesn't feel like that kind of dam. I mean, I totally think it's a great idea to get these renovated, and then that'd be one thought. And then the number two is the 90%. It just seems, just wondering who are benefiting from a flood standpoint here with the 90%. So that's a question, but I'm gonna.
It's kind of taken off what you're suggesting, the area, but the question with them, Kurt, people are currently fishing that area.
Correct. And I'd say the
I mean,
main,
it's not like creating a new fishing environment, it's making it safer. Correct? Or is it creating more of a fishing environment? I mean, it goes to the recreation piece. Or are we looking at, I'm thinking that we're not really increasing the recreational benefit. We're making it safer for people who are there. That's what but I could be wrong, and is it, we attracting more people because we're making the dam safer, or are we just making this safer so we don't have anybody drowning once they're there anyway?
as the cities expand, I would anticipate more use. I don't think there would be more use because the dams are retrofitted, but I think there's going to be a natural consequence of development happening as the city goes north towards the Maple and south towards the Wild Rice. I think you're going to see more people out there on the rivers. As far as flood benefits, the board does cost share for slope repairs, and a lot of these, the residents, their feedback is do not take out the dams because we worry about our slopes sloughing in. The Wild Rice is already sloughing in, so if you lower that water, I know the residents are concerned about increased erosion, whereas today they keep a static water level that's above where some of those banks are eroding. So that's one concern that we've heard from the residents.
Sure. Another question. So the state's primary reasoning for funding these projects is for safety.
Yes,
Is
correct.
that correct?
Correct.
I mean, it's like,
for
this is an
safety.
unsafe area. We're gonna fund 75% of the total costs to make it safe.
Correct. That's what they've committed, and that's what the legislature has encouraged them to do, and they've done through their planning efforts. The drowning this summer in Fort Ransom, we just heard from the attorney for the Water Resource District that they have a pending lawsuit against them for not doing anything about their dam. Even though a lot of these, they were built as cattle dams, the water resource districts didn't originally sponsor the projects, but since they're of the age they are, there isn't an owner associated with most of them, and they were just assigned to the water resource district where which they fall. And so the water resource districts have a pretty serious responsibility to do something about it.
So the idea is that the water district's responsible. I mean, that's the position that at least some people are taking, right?
Seems that way, yes.
And if the water district has to pay for this, we're gonna tax just the people within the water district, county taxpayers. That, I mean, that's how you'd have to pay for it, correct? We'd have to tax the people within that district.
Correct. So the Maple River project would fall on the Maple River boundary, that water resource district boundary, and then the Wild Rice would fall on the district of the Southeast Cass Water Resource District.
Tax them once, tax them again, type of deal.
When I go through your application, I do see, that, and I don't have the pages numbered here, but the policy for retention projects, cost share is 75% of the local share if they are approved by the Red River Joint Water Resource District.
Okay.
Are they approved?
So the Red River Joint Water Resource District policy, you have to have benefits in more than one district. And so, no, they do not have cost share from the Red River Joint Water Resource District.
Let's look at them.
That would make sense because this is just a very, very local benefit.
Unless we look at both of them as a project. You got the two different districts. I mean, honestly, because we say, hey, we can't do either one because they're different districts. We say it's a project to fix both. Now we're doing both districts. I'm not familiar with how they work.
Seems to me that one thing of these two is cheap insurance for the county.
Way to put it.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the funding level of 90%. If it should be 75%.
So for,
Either way, the county's gonna pay for it.
and
Either way.
it's going to be, if we pay for it through the county flood sales tax, it's going to be residents of the county. If we pay through just the district, it's gonna be just those districts, wherever they lie in the district, whether they're using it or not. So we're really concentrating the responsibility on a much smaller group of people that truly aren't benefiting any more than anybody else. I mean, it's just happened to be in the district, like the district happens to be where the river is. So it's like, I would, you get, Mary, I understand exactly what you're getting at, because I read this to him thinking, how does this fit within, these parameters? It's tough to make it fit in there, and sometimes it doesn't quite fit, I guess. But I think, Dwayne, you put it nicely. It's like, well, it's going to get done, because I don't think we want anybody to expose the county, which is the district, which is the county, to something that the state has told us you should fix this, and we're going to pay for a bunch of it. You could pay for a little bit of it. It would seem counterproductive not to take advantage of that. And we could fund the 75% and figure out how I don't think we have the numbers, Kurt, as far as how the district would pay for this.
Gotta defer to Melissa on mechanism.
We have some different, buckets in our general funds, but, Maple River has a much smaller tax base than Southeast Cass. So Southeast Cass could maybe find the funding in their general fund, but Maple River would be a tough sell, and we're really trying to make sure we get these done to make it safe. So in order to get it done, the funding request is kind of where, we could pick up the local share of that, but it'd be a little bit harder to pick up the 25%.
And I'll sound like I'm arguing against myself because I just let my brain
Yep.
spill through my mouth here.
No, but that makes,
But,
they're all good.
if you're in Southeast Cass, you're getting 100% of your flood protection funded right here in the courthouse. Or if you live over there 2 blocks away. So that's not nothing. Commissioner Brightling.
Move that we approve the 2 written requests for the low-level dams made to the board here today.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And,
That was
you know,
people
I
here.
think it does help that we know how many are in the county, because this would be different if there were 40.
I had the same question, Mary. I'm glad you asked it. It's like, how many are we looking at here?
So, yeah. Any other discussion? Roll call, please. And that was for both
Yes.
B and C. Okay.
Brightling,
Yes.
Sherling,
Yes.
Heinley,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson, Mr. Steen.
Yes.
Mr. Sassy.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Is there any other business? Any other business? Sure.
Green, Melissa.
Yeah, make it green.
There
There
you
we go.
Within your list of projects eligible for funding, number 9 has embankment slumping along the Red River, Wild Rice River, Cheyenne, Maple, Rush, and Lower Rush Rivers, and legal drains. I was under the impression that legal drains were not included. Was this a change? And with that, we have multiple legal drains that have slides and issues with them
I'll bet
currently.
you do.
So
I don't know the answer to that. Tom, do you know what she's referring to?
As far as I can remember, I believe it was always in there, but I could be wrong.
I can share it up on the screen here too, if that helps. Yeah, I have it, part of it underlined. It also says it right here.
Rick?
There's a lot of legal drains. Most of, I won't say most of, many of them are inside the protected area. I mean, right? So, but we do have legal drains outside the protected area. I don't know what they all are, but I know we have them. Far fewer than we have inside the protected area, I think.
Probably the other way around.
Is it?
The other way around. Right?
Is it really?
Northeast corner there.
Okay.
I believe there's 370 miles of legal drain in the county. And there's probably about 50 falling within the protected area. I'm just
That's it.
spitballing. Yeah.
Okay.
On every mile line on the northeast corner, going east and west, just crazy.
I would say that, you know, typically what this is referred to is when we've had major slumping, like 81 south when the Wild Rice River is going down, or when you've got a house that's precariously sliding into the river. Those are the issues we've dealt with here, not every legal drain in the
I think
county.
it's fair to say that we would be very reluctant to fund an average drain reconstruction project because of slumping.
Right.
So if infrastructure were at risk, as not necessarily sounding like if it's a road, that's maybe not severe enough of infrastructure at risk, but other infrastructure at risk is kind of where you would consider it.
Those are things that we've addressed. We haven't always responded necessarily. I mean, the church has, you know, certainly been a challenging one that you know, we looked at. There's been an odd house here and there that we've helped when FEMA funds were available to help purchase those. We tend to not historically want to do a whole lot with roads. You know, so I mean, and that's why we have this group is, you know, it's, you have to come and talk to us, but you're going to get a different group here next spring. So at least one person will be different.
Commissioner Sherling, where this stems from too is we were reading the policy, and the Maple River Water Resource District has several drains that are on hold. They've got projects ready to go. They're sloughing, they're 70 years old, they're past their service life, and they're looking for funding. And rather than drop a bunch of requests in front of you and make you debate it, we thought we'd ask the question at this. And that was Melissa's wisdom there of don't just drop a bunch of requests on, let's talk about it. So, I don't know, in the meantime, if we meet with Tom, maybe on the side.
Yeah, and I mean, just, this is for flood protection. So that's the key. It's not for draining farm fields. And I think that's the important thing to remember is why we're here. But is there any other business? Then I would just like to thank you all for working with me the past 12 years. I've enjoyed working with the water resource districts, and you engineers have taught me so much. I know about Lowhead Dams now that I didn't know about before.
One last thing to learn about, right?
Every day there's something new. So thank you all, and good luck with all these projects. With that,
Has
we're
another
adjourned.
meeting at 2:00 here.
Thanks, Mary, for all your
Advisory.
with us.